Afternoon, everyone, and welcome. We appreciate people being here at the meeting. It would be really, really lonely up here if nobody showed up at these meetings. So we do appreciate people coming. We know it's an effort. So I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order on February 27th, 2024, and ask the city clerk to please call roll.
Commissioner Getz?
Present.
Commissioner Henderson?
Present.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson?
Present.
Mayor Bray?
Present. I'll ask Commissioner Henderson to say our invocation, and we'll remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, Lord, our Lord, how excellent is your name. God, we're so grateful for the day that you've given us, and we're grateful for the blessings that we right now enjoy. Father, there's so many things going on in all of our lives, but when we stop and evaluate, we have to admit that we are still blessed individuals, and we have to admit that there are some people who are still worse off than we are. So forgive us, oh God, for the times that we have complained. And we pray now, God, that you will be in the midst of this meeting. We pray that you will breathe upon the plans that have been put together. God, we pray for these commissioners and for our mayor, for our city manager, for our city clerk, for our city employees, and for our citizens. God, we realize that we need you and we can do nothing without you. And it's in Jesus' name that we pray, we thank you, we claim victory now. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first item on the agenda is Mary Hammond wants to make an introduction of one of our newest citizens. I think that's the way to phrase it. Close enough? So, Mary?
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm really pleased today to be here and introduce someone that's become a friend, someone who holds Paducah very close to his heart, has deep roots here and in our neighboring counties, and has had a vision for our city, went away, learned his craft, didn't forget Paducah, saw opportunities with the state with the entertainment incentive in Frankfurt, pursued it, didn't have any trouble getting his projects planned, funded. We love that, right? So I bring to you today Brett Woodall. The last name may sound familiar, or Duncan, as in Paul Duncan Construction on 8th Street. I love the pictures of you growing up in your great-grandfather's office. I love that. So I'm going to turn this over to Brett so he can share with you, all of his projects. And we've got a busy year or two? Close. Yeah. The future is bright, and thank you, and we are blessed. Thanks.
Thank you to the commission. So 2024 is going to be an interesting year for Paducah. I'm going to move this up real quick. Sure. Sorry, Mary. Yeah. We have currently confirmed 6 feature projects for Paducah and the neighboring counties, with special emphasis on Ballard County and Carlisle County.
Can I interrupt? Maybe you could just explain, I'm not sure everybody here knows about all your projects, and so if you could just explain what you're doing.
My company, along with my partner Tom Putnam, who is in Los Angeles right now planning a relocation to Paducah, we are focusing on feature films, episodic projects, as well as documentaries to be produced primarily in Western Kentucky. The KEI incentive specifically provides stimulus for rural counties as defined by the state of Kentucky. That stimulus is in the form of an extra 5% bump to tax credits for these productions. Currently, most of those productions are being held in Louisville and Lexington. Those are not rural counties. We are shifting the infrastructure, shifting the needs, and then shifting producers' attentions to West Kentucky. That being said, we're going to go back to the 6 projects that are slated for 2024. Currently, we are in negotiations for an extra 2, bringing that to 8, with a plan for a sustainable pipeline of 10 projects a year. We came to that number to make sure that crews have sustained work throughout the year with no downtime. That's going to be big as it comes to making sure that they have work, obviously, but also the incubation and education of local crews. We're not going to be able to create an industry without making sure that the people here know how to work in this industry. That's going to be our primary goal for the next 3 to 5 years. From there, our goal and the state's goal is making sure that West Kentucky, as well as those counties therein, can be safe in the world of film.
Can you tell us a little bit about the projects, the film projects? What kind of films and?
Yeah, the first project is kind of near and dear to my heart. This is a project called Caitlin's Chance. The script was written a few years ago, but upon bringing this project to Paducah, we found a special symbiosis, a relationship with a local nonprofit called Cassidy's Cause. I'm sure everyone here is aware of everything that Cassidy's Cause is doing for area residents as well as children. In working with Cassidy's Cause, the relationships between the children and the individuals being treated and working there was a special kind of thematic relationship, something that we couldn't write into a script, something that we couldn't produce. We have been working with them for the past 9 months in our partnership, and we just recently completed, today, completed a new arena footing for their facility. That was a $10,000 investment made by the production, completely separate of the 501c3 entity. This was paid directly to the contractors to make sure that they were aware that this partnership meant something to us. We were walking around the arena today pretty happy, just looking at the sand, looking at the footing. A couple of the horses were rolling around in it, so I think they like it too. That partnership and that project begins filming March 26th. The first individuals on the project will be hitting ground March 19th. Majority of the other crew, as well as cast, will be hitting ground March 22nd through March 24th, with cameras rolling March 26th, and principal photography will be wrapping April 12th. We will have a bit of a down period, and then we will be executing an episodic. I can't go into too many details on the episodic just yet, but it is one of our projects with a special emphasis on frontline emergency services folks operating in Paducah, as well as the role culinary, the role food has in their lives. From that project, we'll be moving into a feature called Born to Lose. This feature was supposed to shoot back in October, but due to our strikes that were being held in Los Angeles, we were forced to push. That actually kind of helped us. One of the executive producers is an Emmy-winning producer from the show The Bear, from FX's The Bear, which those Emmy wins provided us with a little bit more resources, which is bolstering this project quite substantially. This project will begin production late May, early June, and wrapping early July. I'll kind of stop right there because that kind of wraps out Q2, and I don't really have enough to really go into Q3 and Q4. Except for the fact that we have 3 other confirmed projects.
Yeah.
What about your star? Can you tell?
Yeah, for Caitlin's Chance, this will be starring 2.5 Men's Jennifer Taylor, Jamie King from the movie White Chicks, Sin City, and Pearl Harbor. And then we just signed a wonderful young actress by the name of Samantha Rose Baldwin, who will be playing Caitlin. She can be seen in Cobra Kai, as well as the newest version of Gossip Girl.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions from any commissioners? I had the good fortune to meet Brett a few weeks ago, and so I was kind of out ahead of everybody, and that's why I want to make sure that you let all of us know, the projects and how exciting they are.
Yeah, this is something that hasn't been in the region for 28 years. The last project of this scope was U.S. Marshals in 1997. Those of us that were around then, I think we all know the buzz that was happening down in the bottoms whenever that was filming. Before that, there was In Country in 1988. Those being kind of one-offs at the time, few years in between those projects. What is really going to set West Kentucky apart from the rest of Kentucky is the fact that this is going to be a pipeline. This is going to be recognized as a industry segment, and we're going to be focusing on local involvement, local growth, local education, and making sure that as much money as possible stays here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And he was a Columbia board member.
Yeah, and the newest Columbia Art House board member.
Okay, all right, very good.
Welcome home.
Yeah.
I just want to say that to you. Welcome back. Welcome home. I know you didn't really grow up here, but you have such strong roots here. Right?
Yeah. My mom's side's the Kellys and the Duncans from McCracken. My daddy's side's the Woodalls from Ballard. Paul Duncan, my great grandfather, was pretty pivotal in the founding of Paducah Bank, as well as most fiber, or not fiber, but cable in the city. Whenever we started looking at potential locations to kind of kick off, production entities, where they can be, how they can be, we kind of looked at North 8th Street as a bellwether, considering historically North 8th Street was always where progress was for Paducah. That's where the builders were. That's where the contractors were. And I'd like to see if we can inject some more of that in that region.
You'll be hiring locally and bringing in people
Both.
for the production. So that's, really a great combination
Yeah.
in a way, that we're getting people coming in that I'm sure will be staying in our hotels, eating out at our restaurants and all of that, and then hiring local people.
Yes. Whenever it comes to hotels, thank you to the city, thank you to the state, because we were coming against the eclipse on the accommodations, but we got that taken care of.
Oh, good.
One of the biggest things to make sure that we're understanding as we undertake this is the importance on, out of state and non-regional expertise to a point, because we need to bring these people in to, obviously, hopefully turn them into citizens, but to also educate the current citizens. Whenever it comes to our current educational programs, crafts programs, trades programs through WKCTC, Murray actually has a really good film program. I don't know if a lot of people know that. We've had, they've had a couple of graduates go to Berlin Halley. They've had a couple of graduates go on and do some pretty great things. So if we can focus that talent, focus those skills, and make sure that they understand that they don't have to go to Los Angeles. They don't have to go to New York to achieve, their dreams. They can do it in their own backyard. That's going to mean everything.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So excited.
Great presentation. Thanks,
you all.
Brett. And best of luck to you, and let us know how we can help.
Absolutely. I just wanted to say you guys have been fantastic in helping all these initiatives so far. A lot of people are looking very positively on Paducah right now.
Oh, great, thank you.
Thank you. Good.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, we'll move on into the agenda. City Manager, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Mayor and Commission, this evening we would like to have the addition of item 2D in relationship to approve an assistance to firefighter grant application for fireground survival training.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we have one person here who would like to make some public comments, and so we would invite you to the podium. And just as a little bit of a reminder to make sure that we maintain respectfulness and decorum all the time, and yeah, don't call any of us out.
Good or bad?
And don't call it.
Yeah, good or bad, that's right. Yes, please.
Handouts for each of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pages weren't stuck. Might be short. I was told there was
Go
only
to the
five.
clerk.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor, council, thank you for having me. My name is Holly Hammerquist. I live at 500 Walter Jeton Boulevard, which is a few blocks up from here. In 2018, my mother, who lives about an hour north in Goreville, Illinois, I was visiting, and she had a terrific, horrid accident. She was hit at 60 miles an hour in a construction zone. It took her about a year to recover. I lived in Cleveland at the time. I moved my entire family and my horses down here and took care of her for a year. I'm an international rider. I train out of Four Rivers Sport Horse Center. This is my family. This is my daughter Kirsten, my son Gabriel. Gabriel is the reason I'm back in horses. That's my family business. I spent 25 years in law and finance. But I find myself in Paducah. And to add insult to injury, my ex decided to leave. And he didn't just leave, he left. Left all the bills, took all the money, everything. So I have a $26,000 house that I've rehabbed from literally the studs. Dragged them through it for the last 5 years, actually 6 now. And we have chickens. And the reason we have chickens is because I'm starting totally fresh. I left my business in Ohio, which was $250,000 a year. Last year, I think I made 20. I have 5 horses to take care of. I have 2 children to take care of. My daughter, unfortunately, is disabled at this point. That represents 1 week worth of eggs. And that can also make the difference whether we eat sometimes. So for 5 years, and going on 6, we've had chickens, 4 of them. 4 chickens, 2 turkeys. The 2 turkeys actually protect the chickens. I don't know if you know the area where I live, but the old high school that you spent a fortune rehabbing, which is beautiful, absolutely beautiful, you let the same people move back in. I've called in murders, I've called in shootings, I've called in gang fights, but we still stay there. But our turkeys actually protect our yard. They're afraid of it. It protects our neighbors. So what you have in front of you is all my neighbors that are affected by the ordinance that says that I can't have chickens within 300 feet of anybody's house. I gave you a map. The closest one is 200 feet with the exception of my one neighbor. All of them have signed not 1 copy, but 5, because the chickens help them too. If they need help, they can have eggs. And for us, sometimes that makes a difference between us eating and not. So what I'm asking today is if you would please look at the ordinance, read it as a reasonable person. My chickens are kept in an enclosed run. They're in a clean coop. They're fed very well. And they're well taken care of. They're not a menace to anybody. They do not run free. If you wanted to see those, you can go over to the Coke plant. I think that the woman over there has about 20. And they run all over the road. Mine don't. And mine provide a service. So that is
Thank you.
my plea. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done, and I became aware of this issue, the ordinance. I mean, we really hadn't come up before, so I'm sure there are others that are affected by this, so I think that, the commission will have to take this under advisement. So thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you very much. Will you notify me by email or?
Oh, we'll, somehow, oh, yeah.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got a few items that I want to talk about before we got into the entire agenda. I want to, first of all, most of you, I would assume, are aware of a protest that we had this past weekend in Paducah. It was a little bit unsettling. Reports started coming out on social media Sunday afternoon of a group of people with masks walking around. Really nobody at first could really figure out what they were protesting. They walked, I know, in front of Commissioner Henderson's church. They were really, my wife actually saw them over at Noble Park. she didn't get a good view of what the license plates were, so I'm not really sure that we could determine exactly where they're from, but it was very unsettling. What we have determined, is that, what they did was not illegal. People have the right to protest, and they have the right to, to express, their opinions about things. So they were not required to get a city permit, and so they were really within their legality. But that does not, from my perspective, that does not make it right. And it was very unsettling for this community, to have to really sit through that. At the end of the day, what they were protesting was a local, a decision made in our judicial system. Something that they had picked up on from out of town and came in to protest that. And I think the image that came across on this protest was that Paducah's got, Paducah has issues, or Paducah, really has, the citizens are not getting along, or, there's issues here in this community. And quite frankly, I just felt compelled to speak out about it because I think every community does have challenges, does have hurdles, and it's always work in process. But this community is moving forward, and we are on a good trajectory, and we are doing some really good things in this community. And I just wanted to call out that that group, that out-of-town group, who wore masks, who didn't even, have the gumption to uncover their faces, came here into our community, to make a scene. And I just wanted to call out and say that they did not represent this community. And I don't know if anybody else has a comment. I know Commissioner Henderson, they were in front of your church. I don't know if anybody, I started getting reports Sunday afternoon, but that's what I have to say.
Well, Mayor, since you've opened the door, I'll walk in. I think absolutely it was unsettling. We dismissed church, and some of the parishioners called my attention to perhaps about 20 people across the parking lot who were standing in formation and who were standing directly in front of our doors. We could see them. And I think the term unsettling is a good term. It was very unsettling. And I think that I agree that that's not where we are. I agree that that's not who we are. But I still want to continue to say that we can't fix what we don't face. And whether they were from out of town or across town, anytime your face is covered, it brings about some unsettling memories and thoughts and all those kinds of things. And so I don't want to just say, well, they weren't here to protest against blacks or protest against this or that. I want to point out that any time you cover your face, it's a problem. It is a problem. And I think that we just can't sit back. I think we need to make a very strong statement that this kind of behavior is not going to be tolerated in Paducah, whether they are from in town or out of town. It's just not going to be tolerated. And so I appreciate calls and the visits or whatever, people may have said, but we've got an issue. You looked at the paper in Nashville. They had the same thing in Nashville. But Nashville residents made it very clear it ain't happening here. And they ran them out of Nashville. And I just think that we've got too many good things happening in our city to just kind of pass it off. We got to make strong statements. We cannot mince our words. We have to be very clear that is not going to happen in Paducah in any way, any form, whether it was across town or out of town. So that's what I have to say about that.
Anybody else?
Just curious, what did they do in Nashville to discourage that?
Same kind of thing.
No, to discourage it.
To discourage?
Well, yeah, right.
What did they do?
Yeah.
They did exactly what this group did. They marched.
I mean, you
No,
said
what
that
did the city
Nashville
do
Center-
to
Oh, but the city,
discourage?
the residents came out, and I don't know that the city did particularly anything, but the residents themselves came forward and said, hey, no, not here.
I think if more people had known, I think some people would have shown up.
Well, I mean, nobody,
Just kind of hit everyone.
yeah, nobody knew. And I will say this, I don't think that it was an accident or by coincidence that they were across the street from they started
Yeah.
at a predominantly African-American church. They were there when church was dismissed. And we are the oldest African-American church in Western Kentucky. You have an African-American pastor who is a leader in our city. It was not by accident, because if they had something to say to the judicial system or to the city of Paducah, they would have gone straight to the courthouse or come straight to the city. They started right across the street. That's where they started, not by accident.
Is there an ordinance against wearing masks?
A full facial mask, there's not, and there's not a rule about, you have to have a permit if you have over so many people.
I think it's 50 people, you have to have a permit, is that
No,
right?
Just- is it
actually,
50?
I'll let the city clerk
Okay, yeah.
address that because it's 25.
Yeah, it's
25.
20, over 25
Okay,
people
all right.
requires a permit.
So they were probably on purpose below 25 as well.
Well, but also, you want to explain,
There
Lindsay,
are-
about certain regulations that would or would not require the permit, no matter how many people they had.
So there are certain things that we run up against too when you're talking about a peaceful protest from a constitutional perspective that we would have to vet through. But typically, this one was, this is more cut and dry because there's less than 25 people and we do set that by ordinance, so.
So under.
But they did not reach out to the city
Right.
in any way prior to this
Yeah.
either, so.
So yeah, so when they stayed on public right-of-way, they didn't request a shutdown of a park or an event to hold an event. And so they were very well versed in the legalities to know, and I'm sure that it wasn't without research that they looked at that 25 as well, just to make sure that they didn't have on that. But
Someone confronted them?
Not that I'm aware of.
well, I mean,
Okay,
we've
you said
had.
very well versed.
Well, I mean,
didn't know.
I would imagine, well,
Just
from my
how they did.
research.
Just by
into-
their actions.
By their
Okay,
actions
okay,
and
I
the
thought
way,
someone-
and to Commissioner's point about them being in other communities, doing a little bit of research on, and what the Southern Law Center, talks about a white supremacy group and a hate group, looking at their actions, their verbiage in their recorded statements. It appears to me that they did their research and their actions, even here and elsewhere, they have versed themselves on the legalities of what they can and can't say to make sure that they don't, run afoul.
I don't know how anybody else feels about it, but I'm always concerned when free speech is always bad speech. I'm always concerned that when our free speech hurts a group of people, and we just, well, it's their right to do it, so they can do it. That concerns me.
I agree with you. I think the message is they are not welcome here. I mean,
Absolutely, they're not welcome.
I guess if people had known, I mean, I didn't see it till late afternoon. I know they had already probably left long before then. And then, they were here for a different reason than what I suspected and probably what other people suspected as well, based on their dress and their flags and everything that they had. But they are not welcome here.
Not at all.
Anybody else? Okay, I just wanted to open that up. I also wanted to give a quick update on the City Block project. Commissioner Wilson and City Manager Jordan and I had a call with Wayland Ventures this morning, and they continue on their I guess I would call it a journey to find financing for their project. They're talking to at least 3 different lending institutions out there right now who have the project under evaluation. I believe that Wayland definitely has a sense of urgency. They're working as hard as they can to find financing. They themselves have invested quite a bit of money in this project, and so they definitely are going to have sunk costs if the project were not going to be completed. And they also have a very significant reputational risk if the project doesn't go forward. So there's a lot of motivators out there for people, for that company to move forward. The city continues to be supportive of their efforts at this point, but they also know that there's a timeline, that we cannot have that spot where the hotel has been planned to be built just stay there forever. So that message has been delivered to them, and we will continue to work through the opportunity to help them get financing, although really it's not up to the city because the bank is going to make that decision based upon the return on their investment. So I just wanted to give the community an update on that. And I guess the final thing I'd say, and then I'll let Sandra if you want to say something. But I think sometimes some people wonder, well, are you even talking to Wayland? I mean, we're talking with them regularly. And this is a significant project, for the city. And so we don't just call once every month or two. So we're in constant contact with them and will continue to be until this project is decided upon one way or the other. So that's what I have to say about that. Anything to add, Commissioner Wilson?
I would just reiterate that Wayland Ventures has a solid reputation of development in Kentucky and Ohio. I know for sure of those 2 states and multiple cities. And so, this has been a surprise for them, I think, as well. I think you made the message, you have continued to send the message loud and clear that we're anxious. We want this to move forward. We understand there are complications, but we have to protect the city too and move forward. And I know that you've offered to help visit anything that you can do, anything that this city can do. We'll entertain anyone here to see it. It's a great project. And so we hope to see that it will come true with Wayland, but if not, we'll move forward. But hopefully it will come true with Wayland.
Questions, thoughts? Okay, and my final comment would be on 911. The city manager and I met with the county judge and the deputy county judge today, working through the interlocal agreement on 911. We are making progress, and I think that we are on track. Probably, I hate to put a date out there, but we are working diligently to get an interlocal agreement in front of both commissions. I'm going to say in the next 4 to 6 weeks at the latest. So we are pressing forward, and I think we made significant progress today. Anything to add?
You covered it all.
Okay. All right, so we'll move to the consent agenda, and items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Commissioners and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. The city clerk will read the items recommended for approval unless any commissioner would like an item removed for separate discussion.
F.
I'm
Item
sorry?
F. Item F.
Okay. Commissioner Guess has asked that item F be removed from the consent agenda
to talk about.
and discussed. Okay,
Approved.
City Clerk, go ahead.
Approve minutes for the February 6th, 10th and 13th, 2024 Board of Commissioners meetings, receive and file documents, reappointment of Jennifer Caldwell and Charles Leon Owens to the Civil Service Commission. Said terms will expire March 9th, 2027. Personnel actions, a municipal order adopting contract modification number 1 to the construction contract with Valley Contracting Services, LLC, for the probation and parole office building construction for an increase in the amount of $1,374.94, and authorizing the mayor to execute the change order. A municipal order of the City of Paducah authorizing the city manager to engage the services of Stacy Blankenship of Quiller, Kelly, Hutchins, Blankenship, and Sigler, LLP, to file a lawsuit against all potential liable parties involved in the vehicle accident on September 27th, 2022, that caused damage to the Robert Cherry Civic Center.
So moved.
Second.
Call roll.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Where do you want to talk about item F?
Madam Clerk, which,
A proposed motion, the Board of Commissioners adopt a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order Accepting the Bid of Mott Electric for Fire Station 5 Generator Project in the amount of $77,400 and authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for same."
So moved.
No. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
I'm thinking that Commissioner Guess is going to speak to it.
well, we have
He
to,
just wants it off. I'm sorry. I'm
Okay, we're all good.
asleep over here.
We're all good. No, you're not asleep.
I just wanted to comment, the manager today, this is probably the biggest question that I get during the week. This is a lot of money. I think it's fine. I just think the people out there that do watch the meeting would like to know that there are other bids, that it is a local company, and just, it's a lot of money, and these are the phone calls that I get during the week, just to let people know that there are. And I talked to the city manager about it today, and, there were 3 local bids, and this was the lowest and best bid, and I have no problem with it. I was just,
Well, I think you raise a good point. I go over, we have a meeting the
Yes.
week before every commission meeting where we go over the agenda. And there's always items on the consent agenda, and I try to choose the items that people would be interested to know about and pull them off the consent agenda
I
so
know
we
you
can
do that,
talk about.
yes.
So I didn't pick up on this one.
it's a lot of money, and just
So-
most people want to know, that call me, want to know, well, who else bid on that? Is that just, and it was, and I asked my questions today, and I have no problem with it at all. It was more of just letting the public know
And you're saying it is the lowest bid of the,
that, yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Chris, you want to speak to the bid process on this one, please?
Quickly, we went out for bids, advertised bids, we received 3 bids, it was the lowest, they ranged from $77,000 to $102,000. I appreciate you doing that for the public's awareness, because I assure you, we scrutinize every penny.
I know you do.
And we'll continue to do so. But we felt like it was a fair bid. We even, is it fair? Does it seem fair? Sometimes we get bids back and we're like, seems like they're just doing this because it's the city. We can't do this. So we do take that approach, and we felt like this was a very fair deal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Okie dokie. Call roll.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Okay, we have 4 municipal orders to discuss tonight. The first one is an interlocal agreement for mutual aid, and I'll ask the city clerk to please read it.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order Authorizing the Mayor to Execute an Interlocal Cooperation Agreement for Automatic Mutual Aid Between the City of Paducah, Kentucky and the City of Metropolis, Illinois."
So move. I'm going to bring it back around.
Second.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners, City Manager. At this time, we have a mutual aid agreement with the City of Metropolis for water incidents out on the river. This will be expanding that agreement to include land-based operations, whether it, be fire, natural disaster, whatever. This is just a formality that if they call us or we call them, we're able to help each other.
So mutual aid agreements, who do we have others with besides Metropolis?
All of the county departments in McCracken County, with Mayfield, I think, and I don't know about the rest of them, but we have
Okay.
several with other
Okay.
departments.
And do we have signed agreements?
Yes, sir.
On all of them?
Yes, sir. That covers liability issues, for insurance purposes, something like that, somebody gets hurt or whatever.
Right, okay.
Yeah, before it actually can go in effect, it does have to have approval by this body.
Okay.
And so that's, all of our mutual aid agreements have to go through that same process.
Correct.
But is this just for water?
No, we already have water in place.
Okay, that's what I thought, because we own the.
Right, they have a boat, and, we help them, they help us. This is just to cover, fire activities, wrecks up on the
Okay,
interstate, whatever.
okay, good,
Okay, thanks, Greg.
thanks.
Call roll?
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Okay, I ask the city clerk to read the next one.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order Authorizing the Application for a Paul Bruhn Historic Revitalization Grant in the amount of $750,000 towards sub-grants for the rehabilitation of historic properties in the Central Business District, Market House District, and Southside Community."
So moved.
Second.
Good evening, Mayor, Commission, City Manager, City Clerk. Each year, the National Park Service provides funding through the Historic Preservation Fund for rural communities for exterior improvements of key historic assets. And so this funding opportunity allows for us to apply to receive $750,000 that could be sub-granted out to nonprofit organizations who own properties that are either on the National Register of Historic Places or eligible for nomination to the National Register. And so if we are awarded the funding, we will be developing a application process and scoring criteria for these nonprofits to apply for funding through the city. It would be over a 3-year period that this grant would be administered, and we would also have funding available for technical assistance if needed.
What all would they be, a nonprofit be able to do specifically?
It would be exterior improvements only, so if they have to do some type of facade, masonry, repair, windows, stained glass, something like that, they would be eligible to receive funding.
And you don't know just yet how much each nonprofit would be able to apply for?
We haven't developed that criteria, but we're thinking the cap will be around 100,000.
So we determine that. We would determine that.
Yep.
So is it 750,000 total, 250 per year for 3 years?
Yeah,
Is that how it's
essentially
dividing
that's
up
how it breaks down.
approximately?
Yeah.
And one project could apply for 100,000?
And
Yeah. And so we thought this would complement the study
many.
that Brent Leggs put together. He identified a lot of key historic resources in
did.
addition to other preservation work taking place in the community. So we feel like this would be a great opportunity to leverage funding for City of Paducah.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you think? A pretty competitive grant?
It's a very competitive grant application process, but I feel like we have a pretty strong application, so high confidence.
Okay.
I think there was 13 that were awarded nationwide last year. I believe that's the number that I received, and I think we do have, we have good staff, good team, great grant writer that will make us very competitive on this. If I may, though, I would just like to, for the publics and for our medias, if we are awarded this, then we would come back to the commission about the criteria. So just in overview, a potential could be a cap of 100, but that would be up to this body to decide after the award. So I don't want that to go out as like tonight that it is capped at 100,000. That's just, first blush example, but this body would approve any criteria if we were awarded the funds and before those were put in place.
Very good.
There's other Paul Bruhn grant programs out there that are capped at 50,000. There's others that are capped at 250,000. So it's kind of across the board. But again, great opportunity, no match required to apply. So hopefully we can land it.
All right, good luck to all of us. Okay, so the next,
Call roll.
Roll call.
oh, I'm sorry. Call roll, please.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. So the next municipal order is the 2024 commission priorities that all of us worked on together. And so we'll let Michelle talk us through those.
Lindsay, read it first.
Okay, well, I'll ask Lindsay to read it first, and then we'll let Michelle.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order of the City of Paducah, Kentucky, Adopting the City Commission Priorities for the Calendar Year 2024."
That wasn't much fanfare. Call roll? Oh,
Now, Michelle.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, and City Clerk. This is follow-up from our commission retreat held on Saturday, February 10th. And so it's very small on the screen. You should have printouts in front of you. The result of that is we have 10 commission priority areas and then several continuous improvement items. So what we're looking for tonight is for you to actually kind of adopt the 10 priority areas. We've listed off several tactics that we're looking for feedback on. And so we thought we could have that discussion tonight, and once it's approved, we'll go ahead and start implementation and start organizing staff work around these items.
okay.
So I was not planning to walk through each tactic, more kind of the 10 priority areas, and if you have any feedback on the tactics, please feel free to jump in. So the first, oh, please, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Are you
and
sure?
I'll follow your lead.
No, please.
Well, the first one is beautification and wayfinding. So I really, I mean, this has been kind of an ongoing subject that we've talked about is signage and wayfinding. One of the things that I wanted to point out that we've had a conversation about for the last 12 to 18 months is really designing and installing neighborhood entrance signages. You know, we have a lot of neighborhoods around Paducah, and there's people within those neighborhoods who have pride, you know, in the areas that they live in, but lots of other people don't know where their neighborhood starts or whether it ends. And so I think a well-thought-out strategy as far as designing and installing those signs could really help. That alone is not going to, you know, establish a neighborhood, but at least it's going to be a sense of pride for the neighborhood where people live. So
I think a strategic plan on that, though, is very important, that we have consistency.
Good point.
Totally agree. So, I have nothing else on that one.
I want to get a picture of the sign on the interstate around Bowling Green that I'm talking about when I mentioned the update the highway signage, because it just stands out so much. And I think it is a partnership between their city and their county, because it does say Bowling Green, Kentucky, Warren County, which I had a meeting with Nick and Josh. We've kind of picked out a place that we thought we could have something similar to that too. So it's just funding, design, cooperation, a lot of that to take place.
So, without going too far down this path, you know, maybe we could try to get an estimate of a price.
Yeah.
You know, on something like that, so we kind of established a stake in the ground as to what something like that would cost, where it was going to be, and then we can see if the county would partner with us on it. I mean, I think it's a viable ask, you know, for us to partner on something like that. I like the idea a lot, and I really think the county would work with us on that.
Yeah, planning and I were talking about that just actually today, and how far we can get so that we can have some good estimates for budgeting, that we were exactly talking about that, about kind of a strategic plan or some design work, so we can make sure we include it in this year's budget request, so.
Okay, you want to move to downtown? You don't want me to walk through all these.
You're doing great. I'll let you do as much as you want.
I'm not letting you off the hook.
That's fine. I think there was some feedback, additional conversation we wanted to have around downtown related to the build grant, and then as you mentioned with Wayland Ventures, if we want to keep that language, Wayland Ventures, or if we want to, make any changes to that.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think these priorities are work in process. I think what we are doing right now is working closely with Wayland Ventures, to move them to the next level. We've been very clear with that tonight. We do have a riverfront build grant project. City manager just sent out a note today. We've been approved for a 1-year extension on that, which allows us to keep the $10.7 million that we have ready for that project. And we are continuing to work on additional grants, that would provide us with the opportunity to finish that project. So, there's been some, developments this week. I mean, part of the riverfront development project is a new dock for the riverboat cruises, and one of our riverboat cruise lines ceased operations this week, and so that was not a positive development, for what we're trying to do. But at the same time, I've talked with both of the other companies. American Cruise Lines, which was American Queen's competitor, is looking for a docking agreement with us so that they get first dibs on the new dock when it's built. So that's a very good sign. And I'm very confident that they will expand their cruises that land in Paducah eventually, not overnight. And then we've got this wild card out there, that's what I'll call it, which is Viking Cruise Lines, which is going to be here with only 3 stops this year. But I know they're going to be in town. Their cruise director is going to be in town in May. They've got a big event out at the winery, Purple Toad, and where the community's going to come together and welcome them. So it'll be an opportunity for any or all of you all, to go meet Viking. Viking is a major company. I mean, a major international company, and so those stops to Paducah this year are very important, and I think we need to treat them that way. So we continue to work through the riverfront build grant project, and really, if the stars aligned, we hope to break ground on that this summer.
I just had a couple of comments on 2 of those, and that is that the build grant, the cost has gone up quite a bit because COVID and those kind of things, but the amount of the grant hasn't. So it'll be interesting just to see if we get what other kind of grants we get and all that. But I do think if we don't get any grants, we need to take a look at it. I just want to understand what that means for us financially, because it's a $70 million cost and we don't get any other grants other than the $10 million. That's $7 million that we'd have to come up with. So I just want to make sure that we're thinking through all that.
I don't think it's that much,
Right.
Mr. Smith. There's not that, it's a $7 million gap.
There isn't?
No. So we, on the grant that was awarded, a little over $10 million, we had a little over $1 million that we had to match on the front side. And so we really don't know in relationship to the construction. Our engineers estimate on the construction side would be about 15 based on design. But until we actually go out to RFP and get those back in, we won't know what that looks like.
When will they come back? the RFPs?
So right now, what the process is some of our, and it's because it is federally funded
Yeah.
and from ARAD, we've got some federal partners that dictate a lot of the
Yeah.
next steps. And so currently what we're doing is they've requested some additional environmental testing, kind of what we call a scratch and sniff, dig in a couple of areas to make sure that there's no environmental or historical things that haven't been uncovered in the past. We've done that several times already. They've requested some more. And so we hope to begin them to give us the go-ahead to begin that process in the next several weeks. Once that is done and they sign off on it and said you're good to go, then we can let the RFP. Right now, we're targeting RFP potentially of going out in the mid to late April timeframe, which would allow us then to get bids back in June, evaluate, and target a mobilization and beginning in July, August. That's kind of the
So
timeframe.
we'll know then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
But-
it's important, we do have a request into the state. The state
I
did
do.
not provide funding in 2019 when we received it. They just gave a approval, verbal approval that they supported the project. We do have that in, perhaps, I know I've been contacting our legislators, the mayor's been working with our legislators after the announcement was made about the riverboat company that was going out of business totally. I think it's important to note they went out of business. It's not like they just didn't
Right.
stop coming back to Paducah. They went out of business to make sure that they knew tourism is still well in Paducah. The riverfront is still an important part of our community. We were very honored to receive a federal build grant for a project of this type. It was a non-traditional type project to be awarded. And so to abandon that would, that just is not a possibility. We just have to find a way to fund it. It was, do you remember exactly the numbers? But there was the city match, there was the federal, there was the federal 10.4, I believe. The city was 1.2, maybe
Yeah,
1.3. So we had the money at the time, but since then, with the way that the cost has escalated for supplies and contractors, the supply chain, it has pushed it up. I know that the contractors that are have been designing it, have been trying to get it where it would match the funding that we could get. But if we cut out things that were improved in the federal grant, then that takes down federal money. So it's not like that we can't engineer that out.
I'm just saying I want to look at it. When we
Sure.
get the RFPs in, and whether we get a grant or don't get the grant, we're going to have to look at it. To say we're going to march forward without knowing what the funding is.
I don't think anyone's saying that. Yeah, no, we
Okay,
are saying that
that's
we'll have to look at
the
it.
Well-
But I think we need to continue to push for the state funding to help us.
Absolutely.
And then we could look again at any kind of federal funding. Last year, they did offer some funding for projects like ours that had that gap in it. We did not receive any of that, but it wouldn't hurt to look again and just make sure, are they offering that again and could we reapply?
So I'm
Right.
I'm going to make this statement. I made it being in private. I don't think I've made it publicly, but, I'm not for cheaping out on the riverfront development project. And when I say by that, I mean that that project, our riverfront, is one of our most important assets. It's what sets us apart. And if you've ever been to Owensboro and seen their riverfront development, it's amazing. And so we have to find a way, to put the very best riverfront project together that we possibly can. We have to scrimp, we have to save. The governor put the $3.5 million in his budget. We're talking with the legislators. I'm on my way to Frankfurt as soon as we finish this meeting tonight for a meeting all day tomorrow. Anybody that wants to go with me, please jump in. But it's an important project, so I'll leave it at that. Okay, Michelle?
Okay. And with that, I was going to move on to the housing section, unless there's any further discussion on the downtown items.
I think we're good.
All right, so we've had some back and forth with the mayor on some of this language. I think on the housing, what we really heard is evaluating our incentives and expanding financial support to incentivize developers. We talk about working with the Paducah Alliance of Neighbors and other developers to expand their role in building new housing, and part of that ties into the incremental development training we have coming up next week. So I believe those capture your intent around housing.
I think so. I think Commissioner Smith's had a lot of input on this, so I would defer to him, see if he's, you have any input, or are you okay with these tactics?
I like it. I mean, we've done the comprehensive plan with the county, and a huge thing that came up, it's a big weakness of McCracken County and Paducah, is that our housing stock is old. And we have got to get that addressed, because it affects the way the city looks. Unless you want to live in an old home, a lot of people don't want to live in an old home. A lot of people do. I live in an old home. But we've got to have places for people to live, and newer homes are sustainable, and we've just got to get some new housing. I think that'll be a big economic driver for the city.
I looked at, I don't know, maybe I didn't, I don't know if I don't know if I can remember if I sent it to you, but I attended a webinar on the importance of housing as it relates to economic development. And I think that's, it was very interesting when companies come to look at a community, whether to relocate there or to expand there. The housing stock for their employees, for the people that work for them, is very important. And so, to your point, I mean, it's housing, increasing our housing stock is important for lots of reasons, but one of our primary drivers is economic development or job growth. And so that's very important. So, okay.
Okay. Looking at minority inclusion, we talked about continuing our initiatives with supporting the Human Rights Commission, the Paducah Diversity Advisory Board, and supporting the diversity specialist initiatives. Then we also talked about proactively seeking a diverse candidate pool for city boards and commissions. So I think those are capture your discussion.
Commissioner Henderson, you have any thoughts or input on this?
I'm excited about the Human Rights Commission, and I see Brother Hernandez here today, who's the chairperson of that committee, and I'd be interested to see what kind of progress they are making.
The Human Rights Commission?
Human Rights Commission, yes.
Okay. You're calling him on the carpet?
Oh, I'm sorry. He can handle it. Well, maybe, no, don't say anything. No.
So let me say this, we won't ask him to come up
right, we won't do
tonight,
that.
but I will say, they're starting to get their feet on the ground and under them. And I've had a couple of conversations with Robert. Thank you for your leadership, and it's so important. And I think the Human Rights Commission is going to do great work. I think I'm going to make this comment. I'm going to go out there on a limb. There's been, been some bills introduced in the House. I've had a conversation with Dr. Reese, Anton Reese, about some of these, I'll just call them anti-DEI bills that have been introduced in the legislature. And I think, the term diversity, equity, and inclusion gets dragged through the mud a lot, and people really don't, it gets a moniker, and but I want to just say that what we've accomplished here and what we continue to work on and plan on accomplishing here in that particular area, minority inclusion, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have a diversity specialist that's getting ready to start with the city. We mentioned human rights. The city's been very supportive of minority business initiative that really started out at the college. So this is an area that we've been very active in and are going to continue to be. And I'd leave it at that.
Absolutely.
I know you didn't want to ask Chair Hernandez, but you've got a luncheon being planned, correct? You want to speak to that real quick? I'm going to call you.
See, I left him off the hook.
I want to start getting the word out about it because I'm excited about this coming back.
Thank you. Yeah, mid-April.
3
we are
minutes.
Planning. What did you say?
And be respectful.
Mid-April, we are planning a event at the Cherry Center, now that it's been renovated and open and ready. And with Stephanie's help, we've been trying to plan this thing, and it's going to be related to fair housing and the Fair Housing Act, and our role in providing support and exploring any violations of rights related to housing in the community. See, but I want to echo something you were saying, Mayor, that the advisory board, the Human Rights Commission, the youth board that's called the SCAC, all these actions that the city's taken and supporting, I think, is doing exactly what Commissioner Henderson was talking about, was it sends that public message that Paducah is the kind of place where those protests that we observed are not going to be welcomed or allowed. So I appreciate all that, appreciate the support for the commission. We are doing really well. We are really active. Congratulations on putting together this group that is intelligent, enthusiastic, and we're a good team.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Robert.
I know. I owe you one.
Do you have a date? Is there a date?
Yeah,
Yes, April 18th.
April 18th.
At the beginning, it's a luncheon at the Cherry Civic Center, beginning at 11:30.
Okay, we'll move on.
Next item is operational efficiencies, and this is really looking to find efficiencies in our current development review process and then looking at some electrical permitting processes.
So I would invite Commissioner Guess, if you have anything, you okay with the way these are structured?
Yeah.
Any thoughts or comments on that?
No, I just always said I wanted to see the pros and the cons. No, I think it's
Okay.
great. Thanks.
Next, we have protecting key historical and cultural resources. So this is a little bit about what our planning director was talking about, but we're looking at implementing the recommendation of the Hotel Metropolitan and, of course, supporting Columbia Theater, which we talked about at our last commission meeting. So this is a continuation of a lot of items from the prior commission priorities.
Yeah, so we've already, kind of made our commitment on the Columbia. So the other big item there is really the Hotel Metropolitan. It looks like that they're in line to get a big grant. We'll probably know something this summer. I think if they get that grant, there's going to be a lot of changes. Enhancements probably is the better way to say that. That we all need to work on to bring the Hotel Metropolitan, to help it become what we all know that it can become. And it's gonna take a lot of effort, a lot of working together with the Hotel Metropolitan, and so there's plenty of work coming on that. I did want to point out, and of course, Nick mentioned earlier this historical grant that we've applied for, the $750,000. There are some other structures around town that Brent Leggs did identify in his report, that if we were to be fortunate enough to get a grant of that nature, that could go a long way toward saving some of these historical assets.
Yes.
So there's plenty of work left to do in this particular category.
Absolutely.
So.
Okay. Moving on to quality of life. This is kind of an interesting one. It has several tactics. One is the marketing campaign promoting benefits of living in the city, continue to reduce nuisances for city residents, looking at speeding, noise, litter abatement. These are things that kind of carry over from the prior commission priorities. And then kind of the new item is supporting the community efforts around addressing homelessness in the community. So we grouped several items here.
Yeah, any thoughts from commissioners on any of these items?
Okay. Looking at Southside, we have, of course, we received the update on the residential incentives from our planning department at the last commission meeting. So the next steps will be evaluating those incentives as appropriate and considering expanding to other Southside neighborhoods. We also added a new one of looking at the community gardens on vacant city lots and making garden resources available to residents. So it's kind of how that has evolved.
Yeah, the south side, this is a continuation of a big project that we've, set out on a couple of years ago. It's a long-term project. We've introduced incentives into the Walter Jeton. This kind of overlaps with housing, really, but we've introduced these incentives into the Walter Jeton area. We've gotten some, I think we need to evaluate whether or not those incentives are taking hold in that area, number one. And number two, I think we need to evaluate where we can move those incentives into other Southside neighborhoods. And of course, that has a lot to do with money and budgeting, but I think that's some of the hard work that we need to do as we go through the budgeting process. So, okay.
Looking at stormwater, this is also kind of a continuation, but the new item would be looking at our next stormwater abatement project. Of course, we were able to complete some stormwater projects with ARPA funding, so working with our consultant to identify what would be the next project we're looking at. And of course, working with the board on funding of that.
Stormwater. Yes, I think what we decided at the commission priority meeting is that we have to keep working on it. We can't just, not work on it. And so we picked out a project to try to do this year, and do it from within the funding that we have available to us now. I will tell you that Greg, the assistant city manager, the assistant, sorry, the assistant director of engineering, sorry, snafu. The assistant director of engineering and I spent a couple hours with John Hodges, who runs JSA, driving around the city, looking at all the really different points in the flood wall where a lot of our stormwater issues come about, and trying to understand really how our stormwater problems, issues, what we can do. And I think that what I'm dedicated to is not to let that issue die. We've got to continue, to push forward in that area and evaluate projects that we can do, because I think we're going to have to eat the elephant just one bite at a time. So, any thoughts on stormwater?
I agree.
Okay.
Okay. Finally, we have trails and bike lanes. This is another continuation. We're working with the National Park Service to create a Greenway Trail Master Plan. We had a steering committee call actually today, and we're looking at our first public engagement, which will be a series of workshop over several days to be in mid-June. So the idea is we'd have one public workshop to get, or several. We'd have public workshops in June to get the input from the community. We'd go back to the steering committee, review it, and then we'd have another public engagement when we kind of have the proposal of, okay, here's what the master plan is looking like, to get some more feedback. And then it would come to the board for adoption so that we could start looking at kind of design, engineering, and construction. So we can engage their services for up to 2 years. We'd like for it to move a little quicker, but we don't want to, put at risk the public process either. That input is important.
That was crazy today, trying to find 3 dates. I was amazed. I was amazed. We had like 20 or 25 of us on a call trying to find these 3 dates where we could have these community meetings. And so we started out looking at March.
Yeah.
Then we went to April. Then we went to May. And then we were back and forth on
That's right.
dates in June, and we
right.
finally came up with some dates, but it was pretty crazy, I thought, so.
You know, that process highlighted the fact, though, that we have a lot going on
Yeah.
in this community.
Yeah.
That we could not find dates
Right.
to get
Yeah,
through. and
that's
that-
true.
Right.
Yeah, which is a good thing to happen.
That's right.
And then the main guy can't even make it because he's got a personal commitment on those dates in June. I mean, it was, so,
So,
all right.
We have a few continuous improvement items: mental health awareness, city facilities, revenue equity, the Paducah Sports Park, and 911. So those are on there as continuous improvement items.
So I would just point out that these are tactics, and they're not necessarily set in stone.
Correct,
And
correct.
so there could be more tactics that we use to accomplish these goals in these particular areas. These are just some of the priorities that we called out and pointed out that we're going to try to focus on as we kick off. But I'm sure some of the tactics could change over the year.
That's
so.
correct, and this gives staff kind of our idea. I mean, I think it's important because it tells the public, you know, what the priorities are and what we're working on, but it also gives staff direction so we can start organizing work and budget around it.
Okay. Any other feedback on the priorities before we call for a vote?
Thanks.
Okay, call roll, please.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Okay, we've added a grant, and I'll ask the city clerk to please read it.
A proposed motion that the Board of Commissioners adopt a municipal order entitled, a municipal order authorizing the mayor to execute an assistance to firefighters matching grant application and all documents necessary through the Department of Homeland Security Federal Emergency Management Agency in the amount of $37,800 for fire ground survival training.
So moved.
Second.
Chris?
Welcome, Chris.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City Clerk, City Manager, people of the public of the City of Paducah, and our workers of the City of Paducah. We currently have the prop for this. It was back in 2016. It's a trailer that's parked right down there at Station 1. You can see it out there, Fire Ground Survival. We have not had the class in a while for a train the trainer. We have slowly lost our people to retirement, retention, what have you. We've dwindled those down. We started above 20. We're probably sitting around 6, 7 right now. So, including myself, I would like to be a part of that class where we can get that back up to par. This is mainly for self-survival skills, Mayday type stuff, entanglement type stuff. Fireground is a very dangerous where you have to self-rescue, you're having a bad day, on top of whatever citizens are calling you for their bad day. So it's a great prop. It's a great class. People come out of there fired up with it. AFG grant, we applied for it. Thank you for the late addition and hearing us out on it, and hoping to get some backing for it.
So Chris, the match for this grant, percentage-wise?
Yep, so 90% of it, of the 42,000 is actually what it costs since we already have the prop, so we're looking for 4,200. And they'll be able to give us 37.8 for it.
So it's a 90 federal, 10 local.
Yep.
Any questions, discussion? Okay, I'll ask the city clerk to call roll.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you all very much.
Good job. Thanks, Chris. Okay, we have 2 ordinances to adopt. That means they've already been read before. And I'll ask the city clerk to please read the first one.
A proposed motion that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance creating a natural gas franchise. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance creates a new chapter in the city's Code of Ordinances to enact a non-exclusive natural gas franchise. The purpose of the ordinance is to protect and preserve the city's public right-of-way and infrastructure and to provide for the orderly administration of the franchise through specific requirements as contained within the ordinance. In consideration of the right to make use of public right-of-way, franchisee must pay a sum equal to 2% of its revenues to the City of Paducah during the life of the franchise. Further, this ordinance outlines the requirements for interested parties to bid to become a franchisee.
So moved.
Second?
This is the natural gas franchise that we've talked about before.
A comment, I think it's estimated this would bring in, I understand we need a franchise agreement, just because you have to have an agreement on what they do if they tear up the roads, that sort of thing. But it's estimated to bring in like 50 grand a year, and I think it's likely that that 2% will just flow through and get tacked on everyone's gas bill, and I just think it's a bigger nuisance than the revenue it would generate. So I'm not a fan of this, so that's just explaining how my vote will go.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, for the understanding and just clarification, the Kentucky Constitution under Section 163 requires us to have the adoption of franchises for the operation in the rights-of-way. So any fees that are charged are for, to allow for that to occur. Yes, we have, until we get that in, we have no idea of what we do. However, all of our other franchises that we do have, whether it be cable franchise, telecommunication franchise, they all have fees associated with it. I would suggest that creating a gas franchise without a fee you would have to go back and look at the others, because you may opening that up as why are you charging it for a cable franchise and not charging for a gas franchise when it is to have the ability to operate in our rights of way.
Any other discussion? Okay, please call roll.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
No?
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Okay, the last ordinance that we need to adopt is one concerning telecommunications. And I'll ask the city clerk, please read that one.
I propose motion that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Chapter 108, Telecommunications of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah, Kentucky. This ordinance is summarized as follows. The ordinance amends Chapter 108, Telecommunications of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah to simplify the application process, remove the requirement for bonds to be AAA rated, clarify language regarding franchise fee payments, and update the length of time required to have the telecommunication services available from 180 days to 365 days from the date of the award of the franchise.
So moved.
Second.
So this is the telecommunications ordinance that we passed last year, and we've amended it. I don't have any thoughts or discussion on it myself. I'm ready to move on. Call roll, please.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Yeah, aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye?
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Thank you all for being here. So we have one ordinance to introduce tonight, and it has to do with the demolition of the Catterjohn building. And I'll ask Greg Cherry, Deputy.
To read it.
First I'll ask our city clerk to read it, then I'll ask Deputy Chief Cherry to come up and tell us about it.
I propose motion that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance authorizing a contract with Complete Demolition Services, LLC, in the amount of $221,000 for the demolition of 1501 Broadway and amending ordinance number 2023-06-8777, entitled an ordinance adopting the City of Paducah, Kentucky annual operating budget for fiscal year July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024 by estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the operation of city government. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This action accepts the bid of Complete Demolition and authorizes the mayor to execute an agreement in the amount of $221,000 for the demolition of 1501 Broadway. Funding for this expenditure will come from project account number MR0098. In order to cover this expenditure, funding will be transferred via budget amendment from investment fund balance to project account MR0098. This ordinance also authorizes that budget amendment in the amount of $221,000.
So moved.
Second.
Now, Deputy Chief Cherry.
Yes, Mayor, once again. So here's what we got. We had 9 bids received. Out of the 9, there was 5 qualified bids. The lowest qualified bid was Complete Demolition for $221,000. I know we're going to get questions about the abatement. The environmental for asbestos has already been abated prior to us getting the price for demolition, so that's
Can you
already
say
done.
that one more time?
We've already abated the building for asbestos, so I know we're going to get lots of questions about that. That has been completed by a environmental contractor, and EPA has been through the building also.
Okay, thank you.
So we're already ahead of the game on that. They can start the project immediately after, authorizing from the commission. They'll have to do about a 10-day notice with EPA prior to starting, and they'll be ready to move pretty quick after that. We've had some questions about the trees today. There will be 2 trees that one of them's already dead. It will come down. There's another one that's over the top of an underground storage tank. It's going to have to come out. There may be a third one. We don't think so, but it's potential, but we think it'll be okay.
So it's safe to say we're going to save the trees that we can save?
We're going to save pretty well all the trees, other
Okay.
than the one dead one's coming down and maybe one live one. There is, in talking with the contractor, he is willing to work with the public. There's been a lot of interest in stuff within the building. We'll provide an email address. Anybody can email him with questions or anything that they have on the type of material they might want for it. Because after, the project becomes property of the contractor, so everything will have to go through him for anything that happens on site.
So will the foundation be gone too?
Yes, everything will be gone.
Everything?
The basement will be gone. It'll be backfilled with gravel. It will not be compacted, per engineering specification, compaction test and all that. It'll just be backfilled. Then the next developer hopefully will come in soon and they can do whatever they need to do.
Also, just, Greg, to explain more so for the public, but also the commission, that when we're talking about demolition, that doesn't mean this total site, because we have 3 buildings as they stand right now.
Correct.
So you want to speak to that, please?
Sure. We're doing the main building right now. There's a powerhouse building, I think is what it was back in the day. It's a small building where the smokestack was. There's an underground storage tank behind it. So we're addressing that building and the tank after we get this part of it done. There's also a green metal building I'm sure y'all have seen. That will be part of phase 2 also, which those expenditures will be nothing compared to what this is.
And we anticipate under the underground storage tank that we will be able to use some of our brownfield monies towards that expense, with that grant that we have.
Okay. 2 more weeks.
2 more weeks.
2 more weeks.
All right, thank y'all.
Okay.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move to comments from our city manager.
The mayor, the only thing you mentioned that the travel to Frankfurt tomorrow is KLC City Day, City Night. The mayor will be heading out later after this meeting. I'll be heading to Frankfurt as well. We're excited about some of the movement and some of the bills that we've seen, and we'll know more about that. There was some language that you might have been hearing about in relationship to one of the bills that was going to take away the taxing revenue off of vehicles. Earlier today, I heard that has stalled, but we'll keep watching that. That was going to be a big impact to all governments, if that was frozen and taken off of. I mean, it's not a large tax that we receive as a city, but it was something that did have a budgetary impact for all local governments, and we're still watching that one. So we'll take the opportunity tomorrow while we're there to meet with our legislatures and find out more about that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Comments from any other commissioners?
Speaking of 2 weeks, I will be gone for that meeting in 2 weeks, representing the city. I'll be on city business at the Energy Communities Alliance quarterly meeting. We're a member of that as the city because we have a DOE site in our community. So Judge Clymer and I will be out there for that meeting.
But we can't hold up the vote.
Please continue to do city business. I just don't want to be counted as absent unless it's an excused absence.
It is an excused absence, and I've already made our city clerk and our public information officer aware that
Thank
it
you.
will be an
I take it
excused
very
absence.
seriously to be here. Otherwise, I'm sitting over here like this.
Thank you very much for representing the city at that meeting. Thank you. It's very much appreciated. ECA is very important. And the work that we're doing out there at the site's very important. So great work. Thanks. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Call roll, please.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Thanks, everybody.